do not contribute to open source, or at least not yet. Now, before you absolutely demolish me in the comment section below, who am I to talk about the subject? My name is Vlad. In my first 2 software engineering internships, I worked as a developer on 2 open source projects. In this video, I'll share you my lessons and my mistakes so that you don't repeat them. And I'll tell you exactly who should contribute to open source. But first, let me tell you who should absolutely not make open source contributions. And that's complete beginners. Now, let me tell you something. Open source projects are very complex. It's not a simple to-do list or a CRUD application. I mean, Linux is open source. Can you even imagine creating something like an operating system? It's not a walk in the park, to say the least. If you don't know how to code, focus on that first. There are a bunch of videos on my channel and on other channels giving you the roadmap for learning to code. And there's a lot of resources. CS50, the Odin project, Free Code Camp, and so on. Once you learn the basics of coding, build projects, and build projects until you're confident enough in your coding skills and confident that you can make meaningful contributions to an existing piece of software. Because if you can't code, I'm sorry, but there just isn't much you can do in open source, apart from fixing a few typos in the documentation. By building projects, big ones especially, you'll get exposed to a lot of open source software. And you might even find something that you like and that you might want to contribute to. Of course, another one of the prerequisites of open source contributions is knowing Git and GitHub. You need to know the basics, like how to clone a project, how to state changes, how to commit them, how to push the commits, how to create pull requests, and so on. You don't need to be a Git master either. You'll learn a lot of stuff along the way. Before starting my first internship, I was familiar with Git from personal projects, but only the basic stuff. For the more advanced stuff, I learned that on the job, like how to deal with merge conflicts, how to rebase, how to squash commits, and so on. Once you got a few projects under your belt and you know Git, you can start thinking about open source. But I want to make some points first. Don't contribute for the sake of contributing. Now, green checks on your GitHub profile are definitely nice, but they really don't matter if the only thing you've done is change the formatting of a README file. Let me put it that way. The odds of a hiring manager checking your GitHub profile are already low. But if they do check it, they will want to look for contributions. And if the only contribution they see is a small typo fix in a README file, it's not going to add much value. The whole purpose of open source contributions is to deliver value, which helps these projects. And it also helps you because it's a great way of showing impact. But these random PRs, which are created just for the green check on your GitHub profile, defeats the whole purpose because no value is being delivered. Quite the contrary, actually. It adds a toll on the core team who has to review and close down all of these useless PRs. So it's a net negative. Of course, this kind of situation does not happen in all of the projects. Fortunately for us, we had no such issue on our projects, but I know it definitely happens on bigger repositories. There have been recent cases where an influencer made a video on contributing to open source, and it led to thousands and thousands of beginners creating useless PRs just to get a contribution under their belt. Please don't do that. Instead, the best thing you can do is to get deeply involved in one open source project. Choose a product that you use often and that you understand. It's going to make things so much easier. If you don't have any ideas, you could take a look at the package.json of your personal projects. There you will have the list of all of the packages and libraries that you've used in your project, and most of them are open source. Or you can also go off of your interests. Let's say you're a massive football fan. Well, there are countless open source football projects that you can take a look at. Once you find that project, you need to dive really deep into it. Focusing on a single project will give you a better understanding of the code base, which means you'll be able to deliver more value in the long term. Then you can use that value that you've delivered and you can leverage it if you want to find a job. And when I say dive deeper, I don't mean turning into some coding monkey who makes random PRs unrelated to what the community needs. Try to act like a real developer and a real member of the community, even if you're not paid to do so, because you don't know how many doors open source can open. So hop on the developer calls, listen in to the community meetings, try to answer discussion questions if you know the correct response. You will also need to coordinate the work a little bit, so you don't end up working on an issue somebody is already fixing. To avoid such confusion, if you want to work on an issue, just drop a comment saying that you'll work on it, and one of the maintainers might assign you to that issue. Basically, get involved. It's a must whether you like it or not, because unless you're some coding god, open source is difficult, which means you'll need guidance, and this is what the community is for. The best case scenario is to have a mentor who is going to guide you through the code base and through the project. Because these code bases are absolutely massive, they can have millions and millions of lines of code. Pushing through and trying to hack it alone is going to be extremely difficult, especially for a beginner. And I'm speaking from personal experience. During my internship, my mentor was so useful and so helpful. He had knowledge and he understood the code base, so whenever I had a question, I could just ping him on Teams for a quick call or a quick response. Without him, it would have probably taken me twice as long to ramp up and twice as long to complete the coding tasks. So I understand the struggle for developers who want to get into open source. It's the reason why I really advocate getting deep with one project, because you'll naturally find people who will want to mentor you along the way, and you'll get a chance to build great relationships. And as you get deeper and deeper in that world, you will create a reputation for yourself, which can be used to open many doors, especially in such a crowded market. So yeah, open source and the whole community around it is absolutely amazing. If you're a total beginner, please go build personal projects and go learn Git before attempting anything else. And please don't contribute just for the green check marks on GitHub. They really don't matter. But if you've got some decent projects under your belt and you want to contribute to something which is bigger in scope and difficulty than anything you've done before, open source is the right place. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one.